What's that noise? Do you hear that like kissing noise?
Hissing. All right. We are recording. We are back. We almost had a little bit of a takeover by the cat here, but that happens. That's life inside. So I'm here with my good buddy Bruce, and we like to talk about how does that make sense, since so many things outside in this world don't seem to be making sense anymore. And Bruce is great to have because Bruce is the most sensical person I know. So we're going to go back and forth on a few things. First thing, everyone's talking about all of this COVID stuff, and you see an awful lot of commercials out there about how much these companies are caring and whatnot. But Bruce, I'm kind of struck by the fact that as we all put masks on, this whole COVID thing has basically unmasked us. And as was that underwear?
No, my niece made me.
I'm just a little afraid for a second of what you were doing, but that's okay. Take that thing off. So anyway, it's interesting. You get unmasked, you start looking out and saying, well, the air is actually getting cleaner. People have all sorts of opinions out there, but I'm also kind of struck by the fact that while there's a bit of a slowdown, maybe there's some slowdown that actually makes sense for us too. I was struck. We kind of wrote this little article the other day, and some of it's a little tongue in cheek about things. But if you think about this, everyone's like struggling to want to get back to normal. And let's look at what the normal was, this crazy addiction to growth that we've had that may have actually contributed to other ailments, we have, that things never end, work. You're on call 24/7. And when you think about it, it's for things like, I got to increase market share for my corn muffins in Paraguay or something. Right. And meanwhile, you're putting off life. You're putting off families. You're putting off going to your kids' pageants. You're missing out on an awful lot, especially if you have kids and so forth. And meanwhile, what we've been doing is pushing customers to buy more, eat more, fly more, travel more, just so we can kind of continue that cycle over and over again. And I think we're both big believers in this country and freedoms and enterprise and all the great things companies can do. But I'm just kind of struck by this whole notion of maybe there's an opportunity for, I don't want to call it a new normal, but right-sizing normal. So what do you think?
Well, I think it comes down to a character and values discussion in some ways. If you think about personal responsibility, and then you think about corporate responsibility, and we all have an opportunity to take a breath of cleaner air and think things through.
Yeah.
It's almost like the earth Mother Nature is kind of said, I need to repair myself and you guys aren't helping, so take a break. It's amazing to me that, you see pictures of Venice, you see pictures of LA, you see pictures of New York, you see pictures even of people. I saw a friend sent a Facebook post from Burlington, Vermont, and I was struck by how blue the sky was. Yeah. I mean, everywhere, the air quality is better. There's less litter on the streets of New York even. There's just, so on the one thing, we've got this opportunity to take a pause, to give the earth a chance to at least put some ointment on a couple of its scars, and to think things through about how we can do better.
Yeah.
It's not anything about how we can do better as ourselves, how we can be better in our roles as friends and family members and relatives. It's about how we can help ourselves and others, whether that's from a business perspective or a personal perspective. This is a great opportunity.
Yeah, no, amen to that. And I think one of the challenges is, we're using social media right now, but if you spend too much time on social media, you can get into this vortex of who said what, or what's the truth, and what's this and what's that. And there's nothing like just getting out and just reconnecting with people and understanding that, yeah, it's now the realization that this isn't about virtual connections. This is about real human connections and doing the right thing. I mean, it sounds like motherhood and apple pie, but there's a reason why motherhood and apple pie is motherhood and apple pie. So, but in terms of companies or industries, there's probably a few in particular. We don't have time to go into a whole lot of depth on it. We can touch upon it a little bit, but I'm struck by a few in particular that have an immense opportunity. Obviously, healthcare. Healthcare is kind of a big, huge area that needs to figure out how do we better handle things like this and pandemics and deal with all sorts of populations. But you start to look at, with this unmasking, who hasn't been served really correctly. So I think about like finance in particular.
Yeah.
Nobody has saved enough money. Savings are low, but people have extended on credit. Well, what should marketers do about that? What about the food companies and being able to make sure that people have access to better food? Technology companies, in terms of their opportunities to actually do better relative to how people connect. So I don't know if there's any sort of companies in your head or categories in your head that you think really should be doing a better job.
Well, I'm fascinated with the challenges on the one hand of what I look at as within the financial category as real estate. I'm fascinated with what the future is going to look like for all these commercial developers and moving people home, and are they coming back? This morning, Zuckerberg announced from Facebook that more than 50% of their people in 5 years will not be working in an office environment, but rather from home.
Yeah, saw that.
Whether it comes to bear, 10 years ago, the president of Frito-Lay said they'll be getting 60% of their revenue from healthy snacks in 5 years. I don't know that ever happened, and this might never happen, but the gauntlet is down, unquestionably. What's happening with all this retail space? Think about all these bars and restaurants. If you can only have 25% of your customers or 50% of your customers, what's that economic model look like? If you're in the real estate business and you don't have retail in the ground floor, what happens to the upper floors? And if you have a whole lot less tenants and you need to space them out more, these are fascinating challenges that are going to change the very face of urban and suburban architecture and living. Yeah. So to me, that's fascinating. It's challenging, and big-time developers are always optimistic.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they'll be talking about how great this opportunity is while they're to the public, and on the other hand, they'll be asking the federal government, state and local governments for as many handouts as they can possibly get. But listen, tax giveaways are a developer's bread and butter.
Well, yeah, some of those things are always going to be there in those systems. But you live in Manhattan. Hey, Terry.
This is my wife, Terry, walking in on us.
Yes, as we're recording.
I heard your voice. I wanted to say hi.
Okay.
Okay.
No. So anyway, so you live in Manhattan, and I live in New Haven County, which is a little bit outside. It's outside the main ring of Metro New York, but still technically commutable. But you start thinking about the impact on real estate for you, and could that actually start? Could New York actually turn into Batman's version of Gotham? When you start thinking that there's no reason to actually have to be going in there. The last time I was in there was in late February, before all this hit, and I felt freaked out. And I never really feel that freaked out, but I'm going up and down the escalator at Penn Station, and I'm thinking there was enough out there already about what was going on out there. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I am shoulder to shoulder to these. Who are these people? And what are you absorbing? And that's going to be in people's heads. And so that whole notion, now where I live, it could actually benefit real estate wise, because there may be more people moving out, but still accessible if they need to go in every now and again. And what that will do is kind of fascinating. It's going to fill some buckets and empty others.
Well, absolutely. But, I continue to look at these things and say, that's what it's about thinking. It's about reinventing,
Right.
And it's about right sizing as well in terms of, you can't get $25,000 a month for 2,800 square foot restaurant anymore. That math doesn't work.
No.
So, so will there be a reckoning? Absolutely. Will there be a repurposing in some cases? Probably. In all likelihood. What's going to happen to all that Class B real estate, which that office space? Well, after 9/11, a lot of that office space downtown got converted into residential.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a demand for that kind of demand for residential real estate in urban centers? I doubt it. I don't know. But there's a heartbeat and a pulse to cities that just don't exist otherwise. I don't see them going away, but I do see some major adjustments over the short term.
Well,
But
yeah.
Yeah.
In broad strokes, if you're a chief marketing officer for any kind of company right now, you have a gift in your hand. You're going to also be under threat because the bean counters in your organization are going to want their money back. They're going to want to take a lot of it to the bottom line because of the economic challenges they have, and their jobs may be in peril. But what's interesting is that the days of looking for sort of cheap gimmickry and just kind of building your image and sponsorships to get your name out kind of seem to be kind of thin in terms of its potential. But your real potential is really looking very, very deeply and actually getting re-engaged with your customers. Why are you on earth? And how are you going to better serve your customers overall, especially as things tend to evolve? So, there's going to be no shortage of questions. So I think what would be great is, let's get back together here periodically, every week, every couple of weeks or something. We'll pick up on an industry. We'll look at what's happening in the news. And we'll actually be observing how are different places reacting, and we'll kind of use the litmus test of how does that make sense?
Well, how does it, and by the way, we're not just going to talk about what the challenges are. We're going to talk about what we think may be some of the solutions, or at least the path to some of those solutions may be.
Absolutely. So, and we'll invite other people to make comments and so forth. We are going to do our darndest best to be apolitical. Sometimes you can't help but kind of venture into that minefield a little bit, recognizing that it is a minefield. But also, most importantly, we're not looking for, some great solution coming, from some great power somewhere. It's about what can individuals do, everyday people, to help provide the solutions that have to happen for those things that truly make sense. So
Better. Yep.
Until next time, keep making sense.
Or talking at the very least.
Yeah, you take care. Bye-bye.
Yep.